Just good to go. My name is Will. I am a senior account executive over at BluShark Digital. I guess thumbs up to make sure you guys can see this real quick. All looks good. Already, Michael, you guys can see this?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Real excited to be chatting with everybody today here. Like I was saying, my name's Will. I'm the senior account executive over at BluShark Digital. Been with our team over at BluShark for about 7 years now. For anybody who's not familiar with us, we've been around for about 11 years now as an agency. We work specifically in the legal side of things. Something that's kind of cool, unique about us is we actually started out as in-house marketing for a law firm prior to getting our start as an agency. We worked with a firm in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, helped scale our firm from about 2 attorneys to roughly 40 or so attorneys, and then said, hey, I think we can help firms nationwide do this as well. I've been with BluShark for about 7 years myself. I don't come from a background of sales or business development or anything like that. I actually spent my first 5 years with BluShark working in one of our teams internally and then stepping into one of our roles as a senior strategist as that kind of day-to-day point of contact. And so real happy to chat with you guys about a lot of these things that I've learned over the years, but more importantly, what we're seeing in AI search today. Artie, Michael, why don't you guys introduce yourself as well?
I guess I'll go. Hi, everyone. I am Arthi. I am the solutions engineer here at Clio. Work really closely with law firms during the sales process to really demo a lot of our product suite. Today, as Will mentioned, we will be going through everyone's favorite buzzword, AI. So excited to walk everyone through that. Michael, I'll pass it on to you.
Yeah, thanks, Arthi. My name's Michael. I am a senior partner manager here, and I actually manage the relationship with BluShark. And our goal is, as Arthi and Will mentioned, chatting through AI and how law firms are leveraging it and how Clio specifically is really transforming the legal AI workspace.
Before we jump into things, I would love to see a quick show of hands. How many of you guys use some sort of AI in your practice day to day currently? A couple people, there we go. Yep. So, and I'm going to assume so we got like what 4 to 5 hands raised. I'm going to assume that the rest of you are doing something. But if you're not, this is definitely going to be an impactful conversation. When it comes to AI search, first thing that I always like to hit on is Google. They will tell you lots of things. Recently, they've started rolling out almost their own playbooks. And it's funny, we'll talk about what we're seeing on our end, but it's important to, listen to what they're saying, but also continue to fact check what they're saying. Um, they, like I said, have started producing more and more information. And we're seeing that AI search is becoming a more and more important part of the overall search component. Cool stuff coming in down the line, even when it comes to agentic visibility and things along those lines. So it's absolutely a important part of search. And one of the most common questions that I get asked is SEO still relevant? And one thing that we have found and that we see consistently is that in general, there's roughly an 85% overlap when it comes to traditional SEO fundamental best practices that also carry over to that AI search component. And then we see that there's about a 15% difference or so. Now, it's interesting because that 15% difference isn't really going to be impactful unless we've still got that 85% coverage as far as the, overarching and just overlapping best practices here. Even that 15% difference, however, is going to vary based on the search engine in the AI search component that we're actually optimizing for. In general, when we talk about these best practices, it starts with your content, producing information that highlights experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trust. These the guidelines are defined really as EEAT, but in simple terms, you can think of them as just helpful content, right? Focusing on what your visitors would enjoy, what they'd find helpful, and how we can produce information that really meets their needs, allows them to leave that conversation satisfied after getting to your website. Other components such as images and video, optimizing, query fan outs and potential sub queries, ways that the search engines can really start to look through information. But really, it's about taking the opportunity to provide our own narrative, right? And that's something that's becoming more and more important in the evolution of search. If we're not teaching the search engine who we are and who we can help, at best, we're leaving it up to their discretion or their understanding of who we are and who we can help. Or at worst, we're not providing them with information to understand anything about these audience tactics. So it starts with your website, but it also is important to look at this when we're talking about your Google Business profile, right? That local business and e-commerce details, building and maintaining that clear technical structure, something that I like to refer to as that internal filing cabinet of your website, so that as a search engine can crawl through that internal filing cabinet, they're able to very easily understand what information we have, how it plays into the greater site as a whole, and maintain that optimization piece. Something that's coming down the line that's really starting to build importance that I'm really excited about is the optimization for the agentic AI side of things. How do we make sure that we're producing a website that an agent can go through, crawl, right, interact with, and build that experience with? So these are all some of these things that we're going to circle back. But for us, what we believe and what we see consistently is that SEO is really just evolving, right? It's not, is SEO still relevant or is it not relevant? It's how do we continue to keep up with best practices and with the user's experience as it continues to evolve. Quick show of hands, how many of you guys actually use AI search in your own day-to-day experiences? Yeah, and I'd love to maybe towards the end of the conversation, get some more information from you guys as far as what platforms you use, because what we're really going to focus on here primarily today are going to be ChatGPT and Gemini. Now, really what I would call the big three are ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude. But when we talk about performance from an AI standpoint, it's also really important that we understand the tools that we have to measure certain progress and certain visibility. And as we see more and more evolution in AI search, these AI tools continue to grow and develop as well. We're seeing that the most impact is coming out of ChatGPT and out of Google Gemini. If we start with ChatGPT, one thing that we have found is that if you are performing well in that local pack, if your Google Business profile is set up, if it's optimized well, there's a very high degree of likelihood that you're also going to be performing well across the different AI search engines. We found that there's a ton of overlap in the local pack on a traditional Google search and showing in those results on the ChatGPT side of things. ChatGPT does have specific items that they're looking for, and we'll circle on these specifically, but oftentimes they're very heavily overlapping with those Google search results as well. What that tells us, and we'll talk more about this, is that optimizing for that Google algorithm should, right, also help achieve that visibility in ChatGPT. And it's where we talk about that 85 to 90% overlap in these traditional best practices. If we had to break ChatGPT search down into 5 fundamentals, right, these are the items that we have seen time and time again over our case studies over the course of the past 6 months continue to perform the best when it comes to AI search. The 5 categories: results, awards and recognitions, testimonials, lawyer profiles and citation sites, and then press and authority. One of the most important things that I like to stress to firms that we work with is the importance of bragging about yourself. When we talk about a lot of these different fundamentals and best practices, they oftentimes have that overlap in the form of great things that you've done in the real world and teaching the search engines, right, why they should have that confidence and trust in you, allowing those real world implications or those real world assets to translate into digital assets. But also not just having them on your site, but producing that information in a way where the search engine can really go through and crawl it. When we look at the results, both the verdicts and settlements, but also producing the schema markup on the site, which in simple terms allows the search engine to easily crawl through, almost like the bullet points within the site, the major takeaways, and take that information and digest it. The awards and recognitions, things like, have we been nominated for best law firm, right? Super lawyers, top lawyers, right? There's a million of these awards and recognition sites. Taking that information, if you've got those awards, right? Producing the context on your site as well to allow the search engines to crawl it and understand it. If we don't have any of these things, making a point to go out and get them, right? So that we can brag about who we are on our site, focusing heavily on testimonials. The most important thing out of everything that we'll talk about today continues to be reviews, right? Reviews, reviews, reviews. Not just on your Google Business Profile, but when we talk about ChatGPT, there's value in having those off of your site as well. Places like Yelp, Facebook, there's a lot of value in leveraging reviews on these platforms. And then also including them on your website and adding things like review schema, also going to be very important. Lawyer profiles and citations, building out lawyers.com, Avo, all these things that we're familiar with, and then really leveraging the press and authority in your local area. This is one of the biggest factors, in my opinion, that is an advantage to differentiate yourself against a 500-pound gorilla firm that's coming into your market, right? Really leveraging the opportunities, the relationships that you've built throughout the community. One easy takeaway and piece of homework that I would give to everybody here that you can really do yourself is to try and identify a best of nomination in your area. Could be the best personal injury firm in your city, right? It could be the best whatever type of law firm in your state. Throw a quick Google search on there and see what exists. Nominate yourself and then have your community vote. It's a really strong, easy opportunity that you can do, that you can initiate on your own terms, and moves the needle we've found in the ChatGPT results. So that's something, like I said, I would encourage people to really focus on. When we talk about Gemini and some of the basic fundamentals here, obviously, as you would expect, it is very similar to traditional Google search algorithm, right? But there is, of course, some differences there as well. Gemini looks very heavily on the content side of things as opposed to ChatGPT, which looks very heavily on components off of your website. The important thing to note about both of these platforms is that they're still developing, they're still changing rapidly. And it's not just looking at what's going to help us move the needle now, but it's consistently looking at what's going to be important for us down the line. Of course, there's a heavy influence here in that local pack, as you could certainly imagine. Some more fundamentals, like we talked about, it is a lot of on-page optimization. So producing content in bulleted sections, right? Almost like in ask and then answer paragraphs. We call these topic clusters. These are all things that we found to move the needle from an AI standpoint on Gemini. But then, of course, producing the schema and markup alongside of that to get the results. Similarly, the overlap on the result side of things, overlap on the testimonial side of things, of course, very heavily focused on your Google Business Profile. And so if you compare these two, what you'll notice is that there's quite a bit of overlap, right? The Gemini side of things and the ChatGPT side of things. All of the different fundamentals in these bullet points in white are the ones that are consistent across both. When you look at the blue, these are really where the biggest differences lie. So while there is overlap of the fundamentals, right, we are optimizing different things when we're talking about local SEO, when we're talking about organic SEO, Gemini AI overviews, ChatGPT. And because of that difference, really, if we want to be successful in any of these platforms, we want to have resources to be able to dedicate entirely towards that success. My recommendation to everybody when we're first starting out is that it's not necessarily about what visibility we can get, it's about what visibility we should get. If we're visible on ChatGPT, that's great. But if our audience isn't using it, it doesn't move the needle as much, vice versa, right? If we're visible on Google, but we see that the majority of our conversions are coming in through ChatGPT, right? We want to make sure that we're focusing there very heavily. So it's important to understand here that if we want to show up everywhere, we have to put resources and time into making sure that we have the right strategy to make that happen. It is not just a one-trick pony approach, and we expect that gap to get wider and wider potentially as these AI search engines and the LLMs themselves continue to diversify, right? And it's important that we continue to diversify our strategy as well to keep up. We talked a little bit about that local SEO influence on the search engine results, and I want to talk a little bit about what we're seeing as far as that local piece is concerned. What you'll notice in this image here is that all of these different search engines and all these different LLMs, they all have like a different type of local results approach to them, right? But it all shows that they are using Google in some way, shape, or form, either directly or they're leveraging proprietary software that is using, the search engines as a primary source of their own information. It means that really that local pack is something I can't stress enough how important it is to achieve visibility in, because we see that it carries over with a lot of overlap in those LLM results. I'd go as far as to say if we aren't ranking in that local pack, we're fighting an uphill battle at times, right? Or oftentimes we're fighting an uphill battle to achieve the AI visibility to go alongside of it. And for anybody who's not familiar, it really starts with your Google Business Profile, right? That Google Business Profile is the more ignored, ugly stepchild of the digital presence. Everybody understands that that website is so extremely important. But what people oftentimes forget about is the idea that your Google Business Profile is our other way that we're able to teach the search engine who we are and who we can help. Now, without that Google Business Profile, we are not able to rank in the three pack, right? We need to have that Google Business Profile to show that local component. But it's more important than ever that we're also filling out the fields and producing information to satisfy every single question or part that Google might look towards when they're trying to identify who we are and who we can help. With all the new AI fields and the interaction within the Google Business Profiles, this is why it's so important to control our narrative. If we aren't producing information to support our narrative and we aren't telling the search engine exactly who we are and exactly who we can help, at best, what we're doing is leaving it up to their interpretation, right? And in a very competitive practice area, especially, that is not going to be enough to allow us to be successful. If it's not something that you guys are familiar with, if you haven't spent any time in the back end of your Google Business Profile, especially if you're not working with an agency, this is something I would really encourage everybody to get familiar with. We see that the element of trust with consumers is very strong just because they understand that it's organic, but you can also engage and review the information on these business profiles to have a little bit more context around who you're potentially going to be calling. It's also where the element of reviews becomes so important. In this screen grab here, you can see that the three options, right, have very different levels of reviews. Reviews is not the only thing that's going to help you achieve that visibility, but it is going to be a very important factor from a conversion standpoint. And with that, we need to have a strong understanding of the goals that we need to hit in order to achieve the visibility, but also understand how we can use these assets of reviews as impactfully as we possibly can. Something that I always like to talk about is the diminishing returns, right? When we see that we are dominating a particular area as far as reviews are concerned, it's a good indication that we might want to start exploring a satellite office, right? Or creating an additional Google Business Profile where we can start to house these reviews. So that's a later conversation. But even before we do that, we need to understand how far we're able to reach. And this is a screen grab that helps us get an understanding of exactly what that reach might be. Now, you'll note that every location, every city has one of these red dotted outlines. These red dotted outlines are Google's way of understanding what sort of audience can we get, or rather, what audience lives in that particular area, right? How does Google identify, in this example, the city of Greensboro? But we are not limited necessarily to visibility within these red dotted outlines. If there are small surrounding cities that don't have a saturation of high quality firms, we know that we're able to potentially reach into visibility in these small saturated markets. So, for example, Oak Ridge, McLeansville, Pleasant Garden, these are all potential areas where we know if we can dominate Greensboro, we have the ability to reach in to these markets as well. Depends on the saturation of the firms. It depends on How many of the saturated firms in your area have a trust, built up and established with Google. But we know that even if there's a searcher 20 miles from your office to the east and there's no competitors between you and that searcher, right? It is very possible to show and be that nearest best answer. So if there are not a lot of firms in these outskirts of your markets, it is potentially something to take into consideration and understanding, okay, how visible can I be, right, in the markets that are surrounding me? I'm curious, I'd love to see a show of hands actually. How many people in the chat right now, or how many people in the webinar have some form of satellite office established outside of their primary? See one, we see two, three. Okay, so yeah, so it looks like a good percentage of everybody in here has those. And that's something that I really applaud you guys on, and it's something that you can really do to take control of your presence. So if you don't have this information, it's something I'd encourage you to look at. And you can see that just because there are two firms located on the same block doesn't mean that their visibility is the same. Right here's an example of two firms in Spartansville or Spartanburg rather that are located on the same block. Right, one is optimized more effectively than the other, and you can see that visibility in the coverage inside the three pack is vastly different, which we always like to hit on. Um, this image shows, I guess, a little bit more of like a timeline of how you can see growth in a market, right? The example listing here is an existing firm, decent foundation, but poor local reach, and then kind of the power that you can get out of optimizing that Google Business Profile, right? From very little visibility to being seen pretty far away from your office space. If we optimize our fields correctly, if we understand the review count goals that we have in mind, and it's really where we see the majority of the conversions coming from. So you can actually tell here up in the northwest corner, this is where there's a high degree of saturation, right? And so as we see growth here, right, we're really able to capture the large area where there's a lower saturation of firms. And then obviously, as you get in that higher saturation area, it's a little bit more difficult to obtain visibility. But when we talk about coverage, when we talk about eyeballs, we found this can move the needle very well. And an example of this and kind of the impact that it can have for a car accident search term, you can see a 2 month difference here of a firm that, before was doing like pretty well. They had a lot of coverage in position 3, but they also had a lot of fringe visibility, position 4, 5, or 6. 2 months later, right, we have coverage in the top 3 throughout this entire area. And what we found is that it resulted in at least 50 additional quality calls in the form of calls with a average session duration of at least 30 seconds who were first-time callers. So one of the more common questions I get is about the impact, right? What does this actually mean in the grand scheme of things? And this is a great example of the value that can be had behind it. Going back to the LLM side of things, like we talked about, there's a lot of correlation with visibility in that 3 pack and, who is actually receiving those strong results on the LLM side of things. One thing that I would encourage, and I will make sure that we send the presentation to everybody, is to kind of look through some of these case studies from a timing standpoint, and just kind of supporting our claims. And these are case studies that we have put together over the past 6 months that have really shown that. And I would encourage everybody to take a look through those. What we're seeing is that Google is also becoming more and more interactive with how they're leveraging AI on the Google Business Profile. A great example of this is the Q&A section. The Q&A still remain on the back end to add questions, right? This is where we can control that narrative, provide frequently asked questions as well as the answers to supply and control those narratives. And it's something, great example of what I would call, these small details where visibility isn't one thing entirely that moves the needle from point A to point Z. Rather, it's a game of gaining an inch 12 different ways so that you can gain a foot. And another example of this is the Google Business Profile and the addition of really the way that they're looking at social media here. So movement towards making space and including spaces where ChatGPT and other AI search platforms are pulling information from. Reddit's a big one these days, right? Where you've probably seen it for yourself when you're running these searches. There is correlation when it comes to Reddit. But Facebook, X, right? We've seen these kind of um, we've seen these kind of swap every now and again. But recently, removing the share on X for the share on Reddit and Facebook is one that came through, favoring those forum and higher user engagement platforms, leveraging information from social platforms, right? Greater internet to highlight elements of the business. So even if social media isn't something that you are really incorporating in your strategy, I encourage everybody to at least have the best, most important foundational practices in place. Want to give everybody a second here and pause to scan this QR code if you're interested in getting this deck and receiving all the information here, but also give us an opportunity for people to go in and throw some questions into the Q&A. I'm sure that we have questions, so we'd love to get at least one or two of these while we stop and pause here to make sure that we're providing that information and answering those. We're going to give you guys like 5 or 10 seconds. I want to see at least one question pop in here. All right, we got one question that pops in. We'll circle back on that one, but definitely keep want to see a couple more pop in there. And then what I want to do is also go ahead and pass the mic over to the team at Clio, who's going to talk a little bit more about the trends that they're seeing.
Yeah, amazing, amazing, and really insightful stuff there, Will. Um, all right, everyone. So that was really really helpful. I happen to learn a lot just by listening in, and what I want to do now is sort of it's still very apropos, but pivot to um, how AI is influencing legal firms and the law practice pretty pretty heavily, I would say. And we're getting this data from what we see here, our legal trends report, which we can send out to everybody who's attended. And there's a lot of great insights here, right? These legal trend reports, they provided insight into the practice of the law in a way that hasn't existed before when it comes to AI. And the reason is the source of the data that we're getting. We can go to the next slide here, Will. All right. So um, when it comes to measuring the impact of artificial intelligence in the legal space, right? What we're noticing is not unlike what Will was saying, as we kind of can go to the next slide here as well, Will. The respondents um, that we're surveying, they're reporting adopting a generic non-legal AI tool more than a legal specific tool, like the ones that myself and my colleague Arthi will speak around. So, as Will had alluded to earlier on, and this is very relevant, nearly half of all legal professionals are actually using a generic AI solution like ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude or Perplexity in their work in a very nuanced matter. So, literally working within cases. Um, this lift is really coming from these generic AI solutions. And that went up about a third from last year, given what our reporting is showing. The generic AI tools here, they can be used for a broad range of tasks, including research, drafting, review, but they honestly come with serious limitations for legal work. And the data privacy is a big one. The free tiers often lack confidentiality guarantees, which mean that firms should be careful in what information they share, especially with a sensitive client. And they really hallucinate. And that's the biggest thing that has been a bit of a blowback that firms are seeing. And I'm sure you all in the chat have some experience with the hallucinations. But the fabricating of false statements or citations that don't actually exist, that creates a really critical risk for a licensed legal professional. So in the slide that Will's showing now, you can see that although firms are actually using the non-generic tools, legal research platforms are starting to make a big lift. And Will, we can go over to the next slide here. And what we're seeing is 36% of firms using AI have seen a positive impact on revenue. And for wide adopters of AI, that number jumps actually to just short of 70%. 69% is where that's sitting at. And we also see that growing law firms are twice as likely to be using an AI in Clio. So that's for the folks that are actually using Clio here. The few cases on how AI improved revenue, just for what it's worth. It improved operations by 77%, boosted sales and marketing by 26%. And that's working with a partner like a BluShark. Benefits client experience at 10%, and there's better accuracy as well, obviously. So you're limiting the hallucinations there. Will, if we can go to the next slide. So as we see here, the future benefits from AI that law firms are seemingly expecting is obviously in line with the benefits that we currently have, is the time and efficiency in in time and the improvement of quality of work. It helps manage caseloads more productively, and you can see these data ranges that we've gathered through our legal trends report. All right, we'll go to the next slide, Will. So I'm going to start teeing this up around Clio specifically before I introduce my colleague Arti kind of to demo the actual product itself. So the practical AI tools that your firm can leverage now, next slide here, Will, is what we call a system of action. So that is a synchronous product suite that Clio is bringing to market here. And some of you may know this, some of you may not, but this is kind of what the system of action looks like. So you have at the top funnel end, Clio Grow, which brings in new clients, streamlines the intake process, lead qualification, scheduling, marketing, all of that stuff to actually drive conversion from top of funnel into paid clients. Then you have Clio Manage, which is really our bread and butter. And this is what's running your firm. So this is your hub, your source of truth for every matter, bill, document, calendar event, reporting. Everything you need to run your firm efficiently is done through Manage. You have Clio Work, which is the hottest topic right now, I think, in the legal space. It's a recent acquisition of ours, and Arti will spend some time talking about that. That is our AI feature set, and that's really accelerating the substance of the legal work that you're practicing. So it's an AI-powered workspace where research, analysis, arguments, and strategy are built. And finally, you have Clio Draft. Draft scales your output, standardizing your templates and auto-populating them with the relevant client matter data for accurate, ready-to-use drafts, instead of having to constantly upload different Word documents. You'll have one standardized template that will be auto-populated, and it's all going to sync back within the case and the matter within Manage. And with that, I'd love to pass it to Arti and have her share her screen, and then she can go through sort of what I just mentioned in practical detail.
Mute
Awesome.
button.
Thank you so much, Michael. Let's jump into Clio work. So, every lawyer went to law school to practice law, not get buried in admin work. But that's where majority of the time is going. Time and time again, every attorney that comes to us, well, majority of attorneys that come to us say, we are spending 40% of our time doing admin work. AI is really changing that landscape, not in theory, but it's happening live as we speak. We have shifted from asking firms, are you using AI, to what AI are you using? There is a cost that comes with using generic AI. There's security risks. You aren't working with a closed source system, and you're not working with a library that has factual information. Clio Work really changes that landscape. With Clio Work, you're going to be on a secure encrypted platform that's going to be SOC 2 Type 2 compliant. We use 256 encryption, zero data retention agreements to make sure none of your data is ever compromised, and we are not training our LLM on your data. Let's walk through how you can use Clio Work in your day-to-day practice. On my screen, what you guys can see is Clio Work. This is the engine that powers the AI within Clio. Because we are matter aware, when you have your matters or your cases exist within Clio, we can pull directly from the system, from the documents. We're able to pull your tasks, and we're able to pull from any notes that you've entered into Clio to run analysis and do research as well as document sets. You'll see over here, I have the ability to go in and select what matter I want to work on. Let's go ahead and select the soprano matter for today's example. You'll see over here what's going to happen is it's going to start doing a suggestion as to what research question we should ask. I'm going to go ahead and prompt the AI with a research question that I have ready. Or sorry, not a research question. I'm going to ask the AI to review the full matter and organize the documents and information into these categories. So you're not going to have to do the admin work anymore. We're going to do pleadings, custody and parenting evidence, financial records, property records, business records, communications, school or child-related records, and settlement materials. We're then going to prompt the AI to look for any missing or incomplete documents and create a checklist for us prior to us filing this case. Let's go ahead and run the AI. As the AI is running, it's also going to show you the thought process behind what the research is doing. So you'll see over here, it's going to start going through the documents that we have available within Clio Work, and it's going to start working off the data that we have provided. If there is any data missing, it will also surface that we need to add additional data in order for the search to provide the accurate results that we're looking for. So as you can see, it's identified some missing documents from what we have uploaded. Let's just give it a second. As this works in the background, I would also like to add Clio Work is powered by the Vincent Library. With the Vincent Library, you have over 1 billion legal cases and secondary sources available for you to reference when you are doing your research. When you are doing your citations, those citations will be clickable and they will take you directly to the Vincent Library, so you are able to verify the sources of where the data was pulled from. As you can see, with a simple prompt, a task that would have taken hours in the past can now be done within seconds. We took the soprano matter and we were able to break it up into subheadings. So we have pleadings. So it's going to go ahead and essentially it's going to summarize our pleading context. As we scroll down, it's going to go ahead and also surface any missing or incomplete pleadings. We also have our custody and parenting evidence. It's also going to go ahead and surface any missing or incomplete temporary custody/parenting issues. It's also going to go through financial records and so on. Any of the documents that have been put into the system can be analyzed. We can also continue the conversation as we scroll down. As you can see, it is very, very thorough. It's also going to give us the highest priorities, and then it's going to summarize everything into a bottom line. So what are we missing? What needs to be done before filing? And what documents need to be added to ensure we have a strong, ready case? We can also go ahead and ask for research as well. As I mentioned, we have over 1 billion documents available for us to research from, which makes research a lot easier within Clio. Let's just go back. Just for everyone to see, these are some of the workflows that we have available. You can ask a research question, analyze a contract, analyze a complaint. You can do document reviews with Vincent tables, build an argument, compare jurisdiction, red line analysis, 50-state survey, explore a legal proposition, compare documents, create timelines, summarize documents, and quite a bit more. I'll also mention in recent days, we have also gone ahead and added a plugin built directly into Word. As you can see over here, you're simply going to go ahead and select the Clio plugin, and you can work directly from a Word document. So if you want to do research, if you want to ask questions, maybe you're looking to change the tone of a document, you can do that directly with the Clio Work plugin, making it a lot easier for you to work in your documents. And these documents will automatically save back into Clio Manage for you. Clio Manage is our flagship product, which is essentially where you'll be able to coordinate the documents and save the documents directly from the system. Let's jump back into Clio Work. As Michael mentioned, we do have AI throughout the platform. So within Clio Manage, within Clio Grow, within Clio Draft, as well as Clio Work. A lot of the AI that you're looking to do can be done directly through Clio Work. For example, let's say you receive a new client and you have an intake form. As you can see by the prompt over here, I have a personal injury matter and I have the details and I want to create a case for myself within Clio Grow. You'll see over here, I went ahead and I entered in the information, and with Clio Work, that's automatically going to push that data as a lead for me directly into Clio Grow, making it a lot easier for your team not having to go in and manually add in this information because the AI is automatically going to push in the data. We can also go a step further to see where are we getting majority of our leads from Clio Grow. Because the Clio platform is an encapsulated modular platform, it is going to be pulling in data directly from all of the tools that you are using. I went ahead and I prompted the AI to give me a breakdown of where most of my leads are coming from and provide me with ideas on how to expand marketing and leads. The lead breakdown from Clio Grow, which is our intake platform, is going to give us a breakdown of the matters that we're working on, where are these cases coming from, and what practice area is bringing in majority of our leads. It's going to go ahead and give you a breakdown of your pipeline. You can see your biggest lead categories. It's going to give you a conversion observation as well as marketing and lead expansion ideas, tying directly into what Will was saying. So you can also work with BluShark to essentially increase your marketing and SEO platforms on the AI side. As I mentioned in the beginning of the demo, AI is really changing the landscape, whether it be on a marketing standpoint and whether it be on a legal research standpoint. BluShark and Clio do work together to ensure your firm is able to grow as well as expand in the legal research side of things. And that really is the demo. I'd like to turn it over to the audience to see if there's any questions about the Clio platform.
Yeah, appreciate that, Artie. And I can't stress enough on our end how valuable it is to have that data and to really be able to look at, have the organization and, really reference these things to then understand where the best leads are coming from and how we can, continue to incorporate that and get smarter and smarter with our strategy. While we wait for some of the questions on the demo to come through, there were a couple questions that we can answer from the first half of the presentation. I'm going to try hitting this answer live button and see what happens. Oh, I don't think that's what I wanted to do. I'm just gonna go through them. The first one that I somehow just accidentally deleted. I believe it was why is perplexity or is perplexity? Why is perplexity not incorporated within the presentation here? And it's kind of twofold. The first is it's where we don't see the volume to occur and to exist in perplexity in the same way that it does for ChatGPT and for Gemini. So for us, we want to really be focusing our efforts on where we can get the most impact out of them, but also the tools to very accurately track that visibility just aren't caught up yet as far as perplexity is concerned. So we do look at it. The tools are getting smarter and smarter. But whenever we're asked our recommendations, it's always to start with Gemini and ChatGPT specifically. A couple other questions. What other Q&A forms in addition to Reddit are captured by AI? And I think the one that comes to mind for me, it's maybe a little bit different, but we see it referenced is potentially like Facebook is a social media platform where we can see really anywhere that that user engagement occurs. But Reddit is by far and away like the market leader when it comes to the impact that it can have. And then the third question is how are videos and Instagram posts captured by AI bots? As far as how that's happening, I'm not a tech guy. I can't necessarily tell you, but I can tell you that they are. Now, I don't want that to be interpreted as like, hey, we need to be doing like robust social media strategies. Um, Definitely not what I would recommend as far as like using the time and resources that you have. But any like major things that are happening, right? It's helpful to put a post up about them. And if nothing else, build out the descriptions. Like when I think about Instagram, right? Building out the hours of operation that you have, putting your address on there, right? Pointing towards a couple things to really get value out of that. And I think I answered these. I'm trying to figure out how to navigate it the right way. Artie, I had one question for you guys, for you and for Michael. Um, do you guys have any stories of how you found the data that we were looking at towards the end of the demo there? Any stories about how a firm has taken that data, like really been able to leverage it and how it's helped improve the firm as a whole, maybe through marketing efforts or even somewhere else?
Yeah, firms being able to market, they saw, I don't remember the exact percentage, but there was an uptick in having leads come in, and that's where Clio Grow really comes in. With the marketing efforts that BluShark would provide, Clio Grow works in conjunction where they are able to convert those leads. I don't have the exact number as to what that percentage was, but there are firms that are utilizing this.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And honestly, to add on to that, the name of the firm escapes me now, but we had a 40 or 50 user firm that started adopting um, Clio work and Vincent, which is the AI behind it. And they were on a paid subscription with Lexus, which is obviously a competitor. And they found such a streamlined efficiency with Clio work and with Vincent and being able to actually utilize the research into drafting component that they weren't able to find with their product LexisNexis. And that I think I recall the one of the partners saying that it went from a couple of days using Lexis to actually getting and drafting the documents through Vincent uh, took like half a day, right? And they use the analogy of what used to take Sunday to Sunday now literally takes Monday. Um, but the data like this is actually in the legal trends report, Will. So that was a great call out, a great question. And I'm happy to send that legal trends report out to anybody who's interested to, use a generic AI to skim through it, honestly, to figure out what you want to get out of this, the report to see what's apropos to you. But um, there are a lot of folks and a lot of firms seeing this uplift in efficiency and um, the change management side of things isn't all that scary either. So the adoption rate is really high.
The legal trends report is awesome. I can't recommend that enough. That is something that everybody in the audience here can get some value out of. It is absolutely like very highly regarded in general. It's something that I always enjoy reading through. So we threw a couple
Yeah.
polls up if anybody's interested in chatting more with either of us. I believe if you scan the QR code here, I know at least for us that'll be another link to download the presentation. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if that's I don't I'm assuming it's the same for y'all or no, actually it looks like that's maybe a link for like a trial or if you guys have any insights as far as what those are, definitely shout that out. But it looks like a trial on your guys' end.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think it's going to be able
Yeah,
to
it's a trial. It
yeah,
takes you
give
through
folks a
a video
try.
trial, 7-day trial.
There's a bunch of QR codes, scan them all. And unless there's any other questions that pop up, um, really appreciate you guys taking time and carving out some time to chat about all these things. If you guys have any specific questions, I've got my email there as well. Artie and Michael, they've got their emails up there. I'm sure I can speak for them in saying that we're all more than happy to help get you guys whatever information might be helpful. And yeah, all good on my end. Artie, Michael, anything that you guys wanted to sign off with?
No,
AI is changing the
thank you.
legal landscape.
There you go. Yeah, what Artie was going to say. That's what I was going to say. You guys killed it. It was right on point. Thanks everyone for the time.
Cool.
Thank you,
All
everyone.
right. Well, looking forward to hopefully having everybody join again soon. And thanks again, Michael, Artie. It was awesome. And I know for sure that everybody's going to walk away from this with some great information. All right.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
Cool.
Thank you,
Go
everyone.
USA tonight. Bye all.
Yeah. See you.